Hello, my name is Glenn Lewis. I'm a tech support customer service agent here at Agadry, and today I'm going to give you a brief overview of our Bullseye controller here. There's a few things to know about before you turn it on. Now, these are only suggested controller settings. Everybody will have slightly different settings that they need. Requires is for you to do a little tweaking, and good to go on most of these. Down here is your unique bin ID number. This number identifies yours uniquely in our database. We also have a helpline right here. And then we turn back here to our Bullseye controller. I like to point out that I installed lights on my demo unit. These lights are not available. So here we have the data selector switch. This moves in and out, and that's basically you push in to select something, and it either opens or closes it. This is your power switch. This is your screen. The top line is what we call the edit line, and that's what this selector switch will change. Depending on the type of controller that you have, the first row is always, most of the time, fans. Down here, these could be fans or heaters. In this setup, I have 2 fans and 2 heaters, and then you have the manual position, you have off, and then you have automatic. In the manual position, your fan should automatically come on in manual. It's just like a switch, you know, if it basically replaces your switch at the fan. So if you turn all these on, you're gonna see my lights light up, but in reality, with you, these should be fans turning on. These should be heaters turning on. All right. So you turn them to off, and your fans and heaters should turn off just as quick. They might require some wind down or shut down time or whatnot. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. This is the startup screen. It tells you what version of software you have on there, and this is the menu screen. Most of you will only have 5 here, and if you turn this this data selector, just one click, you can hear it. You can see the different menus that's available to you. I'm going to go to bin status first, and you'll notice that this says open, and there's a plus sign here. The plus sign means that the menu is actually closed, and it's asking you if you want to open this menu. Another thing to point out here, you'll see this this black cursor. When it's blinking, that means that the controller is updating all its readings. While it's blinking, the controller does not listen to what's going on the data selector switch. So if you find that you're messing around with this up here and it's doing nothing on the screen, and the cursor is blinking, that's the reason why it's not doing what you want it to do. So we're going to go ahead and push this in once, and this changes to a minus sign and closed. It tells you what the outside humidity is and the air temperature. It also does a calculation. The EMC, which is equilibrium moisture content, is based on your air temperature and humidity, and that gives you a calculation of what the EMC reading is. So we're gonna go clockwise here, and we're gonna go down to CEMC. Now the CEMC is corrected equilibrium moisture content, and that is basically what the moisture is of the air after it's gone through the fan. It's based on the number one sensor and the outside relative humidity. Grain temperature. This is the average of all your grain sensors that are in the bin. Okay. Now on mine, I have this set up a little differently. You'll see the GO1, and this says HO6 over here. The ones that are going to be averaged in this is going to have the G's and have the X's next to it. And that's, you'll hear us say on X the sensor, and that's basically what that means is when the cursor is down here, you can push in the data selector and it takes the X away, and that takes that reading out of the average. So like here I have sensor 2 reading 25, which is a default reading. So you'll notice that it's messing up my average here. So I can unselect that, and all of a sudden my average goes up. Yeah. If you have more than one cable in the bin, you can continue to go all the way down, and it will turn over to the next cable. But it doesn't, so we're gonna go ahead and close this, and how you know it's closed is it'll have the plus sign next to it. And then you have the fan status. It says off right now, and that's correct with our lights. You know, we don't have any lights on. If we had lights on, that would say on, and that would mean that your fan should be running. And then your fan run time. This is not an cumulative total. It goes to 99 hours and 59 minutes and then turns over. So this is hours and this is minutes. And if you want to, there are some people out there that like to reset this every time they go out and visit their controller. Once this stops blinking, you can click on it and it'll zero out your time for you. Okay, you can go up counterclockwise, or once you're all the way down to the bottom of the menu, you can actually click once and it'll bring you back to the top of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to go to bin setup. Bin setup is where you're going to set your all the different settings for your particular bin. Node ID is always going to be 01 unless you have a network controller, which this tutorial doesn't cover. Grain type, you always have at least 2 grain types in here. I have corn and soybean loaded, and you'll also notice that when I wanted to change this, I clicked the data selector in, and this changed to an equal sign. So you're able to change things once you see that equal sign there. This is the minimum and maximum air temperature setting, and you can set the highest air temperature you want to use to help dry your corn or soybean or grain, whatever you have there, or the minimum, which we normally just keep at 30. On the suggested controller settings chart, we have 30. And then the maximum air temperature. If you're doing ball drying, normally this is set at 90, and you're more than welcome to use whatever you want here. Sensor count, 6. There are 6 sensors on each cable, and so if you have one cable, you have 6 sensors. If you have 2, you have 12 sensors. Grain sensors, most of the time this will always be set to the same number as a sensor count. The only time grain sensors will be very important is if you have an exhaust fan controller setup, and that's not something that we will cover in this tutorial. And then sensor status. And we've seen this screen before. In bin status, this was called grain temperature. We have it in both places. Now you'll notice that these all have G's in front of them. And the reason that these turned from H's to G's was because of the grain sensors were set at 4. When I set them to 6, they've put all of these sensors back into the average. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to sensor 6, and I'm going to on-X that so that we get a better average up here. And then I'm going to go one more, and that's going to bring me right back up here. I'm going to close that. And then your fan stages. This is how many fans you have on your bin and that the controller is set up to use. In this, I have two fans available to me here, so I'm going to change this to 2. This should all be done for you already when you get your controller, because we have to test that here. But if you do a master reset, this information will become very valuable to you. Exhaust fan stages. If you add any exhaust fans, you would tell it how many you had, but we don't, so we're going to leave that 0. Fan delay. This is how many seconds that you want the fans to delay from starting each other. We have this set at 5, and it goes all the way down to 1 and all the way to 30 seconds. So most of the time 10 is what people need. If you need greater than 30 seconds, call us and we can talk with you about your options there. Fan lockout. This is normally set to 15, or 20 or 30 minutes, depending on what you want. Fan lockout means that the controller will lock your fans on and lock your fans off for 20 minutes. This is so that it prevents your fans from burning up as the weather is changing in your area. You don't want it to your fans to kick on 1 minute and off the next minute, on 1 minute, off 1 minute. You would be very mad at us that the controller was doing that. So here is RH control type. I do have heaters on this controller, but for this tutorial we're not going to talk about it. I'll make a separate tutorial to talk about heaters. But for now, just leave that to none and scroll down 1 after the cursor and push in the data selector. And now we're going to go to moisture controls. Moisture controls are the most important part of the controller. This is what's basically going to turn your fans on and off based on the settings that you put here. Okay. Enable grain moisture controls need to be on, and they always need to be on. Current moisture, this is a setting and not a reading. So once you take your sample from the sampler tube, you'll need to put that number in here. There are a few rules about current moisture. You normally don't want to go greater than 18. If your actual current moisture is greater than 22, then you can go to 20, but you should keep it at 18 as much as possible. And then after your real current moisture is down past 18, then you can use that real number in this part. Your target moisture goes here. Basically, that's whatever you need it to be delivered at, is what you're going to put there. The plus and minus moisture, you're always going to have this as 0.5. Once you're in storage mode, you can use another number, but you want to leave this at 0.5 in drying mode. EMC limit, this is used to tell the controller how dry of air you want to use. So, and it looks at your target moisture and it minuses the 5. So the controller says, alright, I can use an EMC reading of 10 or above to turn the fans on. Your current moisture sets the top. So with that being said, your ranges, what we have set up here, is going to be 10 to 18. UCEMC value. If your grain is wet, this should be on. Once you start getting into the nitty gritty and you're starting to dial in more specific settings, you may or may not want to turn this off. The number one question we have from our customers is, it's rainy or foggy out, why are my fans running right now? Well, the CEMC reading, remember, it takes the inside temperature on the number one sensor and the outside relative humidity. So the controller understands that it's raining out, but the fans are dehumidifying the air just enough that it could keep the drying process going. So, and this is what's responsible for it. If it's rainy or foggy out and you don't want your controller running during those times, just turn this to off, and that'll solve that issue. EMC calibrate, we'll just leave that at 0, and we're gonna go all the way up to the top here. Temp Controls. These can be on. In drying mode, they are not used. These are only used in storage mode. Target temperature, basically what you want your temperature to be. The range of what that temperature can be. So with a 0.5 and a 45, we're telling the controller, as long as the average grain temperature is between 40 and 50, don't turn on the controller. The temp limit, that basically tells the controller that if the outside air temperature is 20 degrees from the average grain temperature, don't turn on the controller. And that's what that's for. Hotspot controls. This is the one thing people always seem to forget. They don't turn it on. If you want it on, you have to turn it on. And the settings that are set here are not correct. If we refer back to the chart here, you can see hot spotting right here on 10, 8, and 60. Okay, so we're gonna come back here and we're gonna set that. And 60 is already there. Now, the thing to remember about hot spotting is it will monitor all the sensors that have an X by it and that has a G by it. So so if there's a sensor that is out of the grain or not working correctly, you need to go into the sensor menu and turn those sensors off. Meaning, you can go to bin status here and go to grain temp. So, like, remember we took off 2 and 6 here. If these could be working sometimes. So once the if it comes on, it's one day it's 60 and the other day it's 25. It could accidentally trigger a hotspot. Also, like 6 and 5, those are going to be your top sensors. One's going to be your bottom. So, like if this number was reading 90 and all these other ones were reading 70, number 5 would probably, if it was reading 90, it would most likely be out of the grain. So you'd want to un-X that so that it doesn't accidentally trigger a hotspot. Because triggering a hotspot, it basically doesn't care what you have for moisture settings or plus and minus. It'll just turn the fans on and try to blow that hotspot out of there until it lowers it by 8 degrees. Okay, so you want to make sure that you manage your sensors. You have to manage your sensors a lot when you're doing hotspot controls. Okay, and that's basically it for our bin tutorial. If you have any questions, please call us at the number below. Thanks for listening.